So how did Bayer achieve this today? What's it got to do and promise to do?
Well, it has to sell a package that's worth about €6 billion, that's $7 billion. So that's quite sizable. And the idea is to bolster BASF, which is a smaller player in these markets, and make them a competitive force when Bayer and Monsanto merge. So for some ways that answers regulators' concerns about the deal, that competition becomes less when one company essentially exits the market.
Will those measures, once they're implemented, Aoife, will they assuage concerns by US regulators?
That's a question for the US. I mean, there are big differences between Europe and the US, mainly genetically modified seeds, which in practice aren't rolled out across Europe. As you know, there are huge regulatory issues in getting some of these products to be planted and sold. And so the US market is quite different that way, and maybe that's why we're seeing a tougher review, or at least a longer review in the US. And it's unusual to see Europe move faster, quicker and simpler, but in this case that seems to have happened.
Take us through the nuts and bolts of it, Aoife. Why does this divestment mean that it will be better for consumers, that there will be more competition out there than there would have been?
The idea is when two companies merge, that one disappears, that there's somebody else comes in there to fill the place. And what the European Commission tries to do is find somebody smaller and give them a hand up. And in this case, this is BASF. So this is a great gift for BASF. I mean, they get to take on a seeds business. They also get access to digital agriculture, which is increasingly important. So they get data on how seeds and how fields and how farmers work. And that's something that could be incredibly valuable for them as they go forward and allow them to compete with the bigger guys.
Right, so it's good for BASF, but it's not necessarily creating a new company or a new player. So the number, all told, remains the same, no?
Yes, that's the case. Depending on the market, there are about 4 or 5 really big players in this market, and that hasn't really changed. That is something opponents of the deal criticise, that this is a very concentrated market, and that hasn't really gone away. I mean, that because so few companies are active in this business, that perhaps it might be harder for smaller ones to jump in there.